we're back with our first video of May. And yes, I know, this is not the usual video type I usually do at all. Heck, I've only done it once. Anyways, today is not all about another YouTuber. Instead, about a big problem that I've been seeing popping up very recently, and it's probably starting to grind my gears. And this all has to center around an umbrella brain rot term known as Crashouts. Honestly, the way how Crashout is basically defined overall, basically what it was initially defined, basically pretty clever. However, the uses that I've been seeing it ever since this year started, and yes, that includes during when I was doing minigame reviews, basically to piss me off! And yeah, I will tell you right now, it's just gotten so annoying at this point. I've been seeing it all over TikTok. Well, with my friends. And also, basically in BFDI itself. Like, I can't tell you enough of how annoying it is to basically see the word Crashout being thrown around all over the BFDI fandom. Basically, it basically just evolves into, if someone basically shows a really negative emotion, everyone's just gonna call it a Crashout. How? There's more to this term than you actually think. Basically, according to the original definition of Crashouts, it's basically if someone let looses of one emotion. And yeah, the way how everyone uses a few of these examples in the BFDI fandom is actually not how the definition is supposed to work. And I'm just gonna point that out right now. Pencil getting mad and ranting, that's a Crashout. Pen basically getting mad and hitting the floor, that's a Crashout. Him getting mad again and basically going after the Free Smart Superman, that's a Crashout. One simply getting mad. Yeah, that's just basically just her getting mad and not a Crashout. Nickel getting mad and trying to get Pillow out. Yeah, that's another one I am very conflicted on, because that barely even counts. It's just Nickel getting mad and just trying to convince him to get her out. Basically, that's all it is. And it's just, I'm very conflicted if that's even how it's supposed to be worked at this point. And honestly, it just devalues every single one of those scenes. And basically, to the point they're probably worth less than the US nickel at this point. And yes, I know that this stuff has been talked about by TL Gent and Cheesy Pain in My Ass 102. However, I don't care. I don't even care at all. I'm just annoyed about this problem overall and just, screw it. Just wanted to point my feelings out to this type of stuff because it's stupid. However, that's not my biggest problem with how this term has been used across the internet. It's basically the fact that people are making goddamn money out of this shit. Oh boy, I just don't even want to get over this. Basically, because the word Crashout has basically been spreading around the internet so much, there's just gonna come points where people are just gonna make money off of it, and that's where you draw the fine line of what's acceptable and what's not. Because basically, making money over an umbrella brain rot term is, well, basically what people do. However, this is so overly cheaply done. And even though some of these terms, they don't even properly work for some of these scenes, it just is not how it's supposed to be done. This was never the intention, and I don't even think it was the Huang twins' intention either. Yeah, basically just something stupidly annoying that basically is never going to end. Oh my god, that is probably going to be one heck of a thing if this basically keeps continuing. Maybe it's best we go for a casual episode for once, so that this stupid stuff can finally stop for one episode! So one thing to note, that this will basically not stop the entire thing from stopping in general. This will just calm it down, because basically, even if that episode is a casual one, I'm still gonna put a ton of bets for the fact that basically that a lot of people are just gonna make cheaply done Crashout videos. And yeah, it's just, I'm telling you, it's never going to end, like I've already said, but I'm just repeating myself at that point. It's just basically just what's gonna happen, and we're gonna have to get used to it. Until TPOT actually ends, which will probably not be for another year or two. Anyways, I will say right now that this is probably the second worst use I've been seeing of this word. Heck, there's probably a use of it that is far worse. And that's basically every single time it's been used on TikTok. And that right there is probably going to give you a definition for what I'm going to be talking about. Because we already know that TikTok has nearly gotten banned in the US, and it's caused a butt ton of controversy over the past 3 years, maybe even longer. And you know that basically this platform is basically not the best way for Crashout to be used, or for any brain rot term, and most of them I hate. But I'm getting off track at that point. However, basically, what is wrong with people using Crashout on TikTok? Well, have you ever heard of those group chats basically, where like up to like several dozen people can join on a call basically on a TikTok live and basically chat with each other? Well, I've been on multiple of those things with multiple of my friends, and basically what they've led to is basically a majority of them using the word Crashout incorrectly. And there is one way I can tell you right now. Basically, every time I just get slightly mad, basically they're just gonna call it a Crashout. This stuff has even happened on other YouTubers' live streams. Marley. And basically hearing it by your own friends just makes things a lot worse. You can at least know that basically the person who's basically making money off of this type of stuff at least is like 99% of the time likely not going to be your friend. However, this is probably the major exception that probably the person that you're talking to and saying Crashout in the wrong way is probably your friend, because you're probably gonna have a lot of friends on TikTok if you're basically just doing the follow multiple people strategy to get followers. Used that 2 years ago. However, that's still not going to pretty much excuse the entirety of this term from being out there. It may be less painful and less repetitive. However, it's the more hurtful one, because basically it's your own friend you're talking about here, which basically just kind of makes things a lot sadder. Although, that basically becomes little of a point if you want to say that for yourself. However, there's just one thing that we can basically say from this. The word Crashout is not going away anytime soon. And basically, do you know what's the best way we can do about it? Deal with it! Because basically, if we're going to try to fight back, basically, it's probably going to come to no use at this point. And basically, like most brain rot terms, they're probably going to die down eventually, which is probably the best way to deal with them. Just ignore them and just let them die down until they become completely irrelevant, like maybe about a quarter of Gen Z terms. Yeah, basically that's it. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Yeah, I know this is not too much for what I promised for the beginning of May. However, this is probably the best I could come up with, and something that I really wanted to talk about for a while. Anyways, I'll see you in potentially my Country Ball Plus show, episode 25. Hello and welcome to the very first Mario Party 7 minigame review. Yes, that is right. I'll be starting another Mario Party and going through its minigames and reviewing all of them. This time we got a whopping 88 minigames to review. However, for now, I'll be showing you sneak peeks of the gameplay for the first 10, just to be safe. However, just don't worry, they'll be coming back pretty soon. The first one will be premiering on May 18th. And basically, each one will be premiering 3 days after each of them. However, it may possibly change to 4 once BFB Viewer Voting 3 show starts up again. Besides that though, see you guys then, as well!